I'm Laurah Norton, and this is One Strange Thing, the show where we search the nation's news archives for stories that can't quite be explained. It's easy to forget just how much can change in 10 years. 2014 doesn't sound that far in the past, but it is very much in the past. A baby born in 2014 is now watching Skibbity Toilet and terrorizing his 5th grade teacher with a constant refrain of Giat. 2014's moody teen posting Polaroids and indie sleaze on Tumblr is now being told that she's pushing 30 because she is. The top memes of that year were, according to Paste magazine, Kim Kardashian breaks the internet and Kermit the Frog sipping tea. It was a simpler time. But during this simple time, known as 2014, there was also a very complicated story unfolding on the internet, at least if you knew where to look. You see, 2014 was the last time that a very clever corner of the World Wide Web was lit up by Cicada 3301. But to understand the gravity of that sentence and why we're not actually talking about bugs, we really need to go back a few more years to 2012, the first time the world got cicaded. It all started, as many strange things do, on the infamous message board known as 4chan. According to the Telegraph, a Swedish computer analyst named Joel was perusing the forum one evening in January, quote, looking for distraction, the paper wrote, which we assume means that he had a lot of work to do. And Joel did find that distraction, a strange-looking image on white text on a black background. That text read, quote, hello, we are looking for highly intelligent individuals. To find them, we have devised a test. There is a message hidden in this image. Find it, and it will lead you on a road to finding us. We look forward to meeting the few that will make it all the way through. Good luck. That message was signed 3301. The use of the word we in the message led many to assume that 3301 was some kind of organization or collective. So they were recruiting. But for what? The why? It didn't seem to matter to our friend Joel, at least not at first, with a tantalizing puzzle staring him right in the face. As the Telegraph wrote, he was an IT guy and a hobbyist cryptographer. As such, he, and many thousands of others as it turned out, actually had a pretty good idea of what he was looking at. Now, strangers, we like to think that we are fairly with it, as the kids probably no longer say, but we are not cryptographers, nor are we computer people, and even some of the smartest of those people, they could not make sense of the rabbit hole that 3301 had created. So, while we're going to do our best to describe these puzzles, there is, realistically, a very low ceiling on our ability to do that. Like we said, we'll do our best. And, luckily, the Telegraph set us up for success by having Joel describe his first few steps. This image on 4chan was, he was pretty sure, something called digital stenography. Whoever 3301 was had hidden an image within the image that could only be revealed with the aid of a code word or a key. Figure that out and you'd be able to see the hidden image. So, Joel sifted through the lines of code that are created anytime anyone posts anything, and pretty quickly, he had a breakthrough. Per the Telegraph, quote, after only a few minutes' work, he got somewhere. A reference to Tiberius Claudius Caesar and a line of meaningless letters. We'll stop the Telegraph here to paraphrase what they explain next. Essentially, that Joel figured out he was looking at a Caesar cipher, in which a letter is moved a certain number of spots up or down the alphabet. If you have DOG, for example, and your key is the number 3, you could move each letter down the alphabet 3 spots and get GRJ. So if you start the cipher GRJ and you figure out that 3 is important, boom, each letter moves back 3 spots in the alphabet, and you have DOG. So Joel knew he was looking for a number, and that the Roman emperor mentioned in the code was a decent hint. Quote, as Claudius was the 4th emperor, it suggested 4 might be important. And lo, within minutes, Joel found another web address buried in the image's code. We imagine that this must have felt very satisfying for Joel. At least it must have felt like that for about 3 seconds, just long enough for Joel to click the link and be greeted with another image. This one was of a wooden duck that was paired with a sentence that begs for a sad trombone if there ever was one. Quote, whoops, just decoys this way. Looks like you can't guess how to get the message out. It seems, from the multiple retellings of the 3301 saga that we read for this episode, like this is where most people ended up, initially. But many, like Joel, kept going. And it would turn out that there was a lot to keep finding. Per the Toronto Star, there were a lot of layers of decryption, and as players found those, they found hints spanning mediums and time zones alike, including, quote, hidden messages, a seemingly random Twitter feed, audio files, the notorious darknet, and GPS coordinates that led players to actual physical clues from Seoul to Annapolis. While puzzles and clues continued to be signed by 3301, imagery of cicadas started to pop up as additional signatures too. The puzzle's followers seem to have eventually merged those two, and Cicada 3301 and Cicada 3301 became synonymous monikers for whoever was running this thing behind the scenes. As the game went on, its expectations of players, they grew more lofty, and the references that one had to understand to get to the next step grew more arcane. Ciphers? Sure, that is a niche community already. But the Telegraph added that, quote, an interest in both cyberpunk literature and the Victorian occult had also come in handy, as has an understanding of Mayan numerology. And then it got even more obscure. One puzzle was contingent on the player knowing a certain piece of Welsh literature that predates Christianity. It all begged the question of who or what Cicada 3301 was, and why they seemed to know so much and to move so quickly. And this was a kind of confusing line of questioning, even before it became clear that Cicada had some kind of offline presence too. We mentioned that clue involving GPS coordinates. Per the Telegraph, those led to lampposts in cities that were all over the world. Within a few days of that discovery, flyers with Cicada logos and QR codes materialized on those lampposts. And the hunt continued. Ultimately, after about a month, the game seemed to come to a dead end. A URL brought players to a site where the first few visitors were instructed to share some personal information with Cicada. And then, per the Telegraph, quote, after a designated number of solvers visited the address, the website shut down with a terse message. We want the best, not the followers. The chosen few received personal emails. Detailing what, none have said, although one solver heard they were now being asked to solve puzzles in private. Regardless, a few weeks later, a new message from Cicada was posted on Reddit. It read, hello, we've now found the individuals we sought. Thus, our month-long journey ends. For now. It remained shockingly unclear, strangers, what the whole point of this had been. No entertainment company popped up to say that this was actually a promotion for their new movie. No winner seems to have actually gotten anything, or at least if they did, they were uncharacteristically quiet about it online. And, maybe more mystifyingly, when the requisite internet think pieces started to circulate in January of 2013, commemorating the Cicada phenomenon's 1-year anniversary, it happened again. The 2013 recruitment cycle, as the Toronto Star called it, mirrored the timing of the first. A month of online puzzles, pop-up events in the real world, and frenzied discussion in code-breaking circles. This go-around, there were again ciphers and audio files, a Twitter feed, and a sojourn into the dark web, which was far more of a Wild West 10 years ago than really it is now. In their reporting on Cicada, the Star closed in on something that we think is especially interesting: the community of people trying to track these puzzles to their source. Per the Star, quote, "At the core of the Cicada community, you find people who try their best to live anonymously online. Many only spoke to the Star on chat rooms, while others required email communication to be encrypted and wouldn't use the phone. But these people, beneath the cloak of anonymity afforded by the internet, were straddling a fascinating line between social experiences. Yes, sitting at a computer is inherently an isolating experience, but Cicada puzzles also brought online communities together to pool ideas and strategies. But for the second year in a row, the small handful of people who got to the end of the Cicada Road got what looks like a dead end. No acknowledgement, no reward, no fanfare, just the people and their puzzles, and we assume a lot of, that was weird. As the Star wrote in the earliest days of 2014, quote, "Now, 364 days after the launch of the 2013 challenge, thousands of clue hunters have gathered on various internet forums, waiting for a sign, seeking the unknown. Many believe mainstream awareness about Cicada, whose very nature is anti-publicity, means it won't be back. But that doesn't stop them from looking. Everyone, except you, is Cicada." As we read it, there's an air of finality in that piece. It would have made a lovely elegy for the whole phenomenon. That is, if said phenomenon had needed an elegy. Because the day after the Star ran that story, well, you'll never guess who popped up. According to the National Star, a different celestial newspaper, quote, "The first week of January saw dozens of messages appearing on message boards purporting to be from Cicada, some of which were elaborate enough to be believable, and yet all of which have proved to be fake. Until, that is, just before 11 p.m. on January 5th, a Twitter account previously used by the Cicada organization released a message bearing the faint image of a cicada to its 700 followers. Hello, it read, Epiphany is upon you. Your pilgrimage has begun. Enlightenment awaits. Good luck. 3301. That Toronto Star writer whose story about Cicada disappearing was rendered obsolete, we imagined he was probably a little bit salty about the organization's timing. Luckily, she got to write another article a few days after their return. Quote, "It was just after midnight on January 6, 2014, when my internet went crazy. Cicada! The posts started flying in, filling up my chat room window. They're back." The Star's reporter, ever intrepid in the face of stuff we can't even begin to understand, got to work with the rest of the Cicada community in cracking codes. Or whatever. Again, we're honestly not sure. One of these puzzles involved, apparently, a string of random text. And then, quote, a relatively simple rearrangement process involving columns that eventually revealed, "Good work. Ultimate truth is the ultimate illusion. Join us at..." The message ended with a string of random letters and characters that we will not subject you to us reading out loud. Trust us, though, it was there. And per the Telegraph, it was a clue to go somewhere on the dark web. So, for the third year running, the game was afoot. Yet again, the mainstream media caught on to the hum of another Cicada cycle. And, yet again, they seemed confused. As the Evening Standard wrote in May, after the 2014 puzzle fizzled out without any confirmed solves, quote, "If you get to the far end of a Cicada puzzle chain, you are supposedly the sort of person the Cicada 3301 group is looking to recruit. But to what? Spying? Is this some bizarre pop culture honey trap created by a chess-playing Russian spy master? Or is it commercial, an invitation to cryptocurrency banking, Or is it just a dining club with majestically insane entrance requirements? Is the whole thing just an enormous for the hell of it gag? Strangers, any of those proposals seem possible to us. Frankly, we just hope it wasn't the crypto one, and it doesn't appear to have been, because 10 years later, nobody has come forward to say what 3301 actually does, or what the Cicada winners actually got out of it. It's deeply unusual, since everybody is always so hungry for the real story, that we just haven't gotten one. And since 2014, there have been no more Cicada puzzles to crack, no more threads to pull at, hoping they lead us back to the mysterious, fraying sweater that started it all. Whether you thought Cicada was one person riding the wave of imitators and internet hysteria, or an actual secret society, Cicada's silence is loud. They've chosen the ether so that the internet can pick up the slack of myth-making. And that is a poetic end for sure. Or it would be, except for one strange thing. Cicada has popped up, sporadically and briefly, since 2014, and it's not been to share puzzles or to further obfuscate themselves. Rather, they have, occasionally, come online to clear their name. Now, there is an exception that we should mention right off the bat. Per Business Insider, in January of 2016, Cicada posted on Twitter and seemed to rehash the end of the 2014 puzzle, which, like we said, the online community had all but assumed was unsolved. It turns out that that was probably correct, because in January of 2016, Cicada tweeted this: "Liber Primus is the way. Its words are the map, their meaning is the road, and their numbers are the direction." Liber Primus means first book in Latin, and more specifically to our story, it was the name of a 60-page compendium of rune-looking symbols that was unearthed during the 2014 puzzle. Back then, no one came to a solid conclusion about what the symbols meant or where they might lead. Business Insider wrote that the whole thing was, quote, practically abandoned out of frustration. But in 2016, Cicada seemed to offer up a hint of some kind. As people who were just happy to be here, we know very little about what that clue might have actually meant to the puzzle seekers. But for what it's worth, there's a very comprehensive wiki out there that's documenting the decryption process on Liber Primus. They've gotten 17 pages solved, apparently, and we are very proud. But more interesting than the puzzles, to us at least, are the occasional times that Cicada has emerged to clear up some misconceptions. Think of the sort of thing your favorite celebrity posts a screenshot of the Notes app about, but just really, really serious. The first time this happened was in 2012, when the Chilean government apparently decided and announced that they thought Cicada 3301 was an illegal hacking group. We actually haven't been able to find much coverage on that story, or what the Chilean government's allegations were. One Chilean article we found seemed to suggest that Cicada was creating fake bank websites to steal data. But in any case, Cicada put out a statement vehemently denying that this was true, writing, quote, "This is not true. We do not engage in illegal activities. Anyone involved in illegal activities would be cut off from our fellowship immediately." And they signed that statement with the PGP signature, that digital calling card, that proved that it was really from them. Now, that incident occurred back in 2012, early in Cicada's presence online. But they've pulled the same move more recently than that. Mother Jones reported in 2015 that a group of hackers had stolen data from Planned Parenthood and was going by the moniker 3301. That time, the two groups actually exchanged statements. The real Cicada posted, "We are not associated with this group in any way, nor do we condone their use of our name, number, or symbolism." And in response, the 3301 hacker group admitted that they weren't actually affiliated with Cicada 3301. Complicated, we know. There is also some thought that Cicada might be affiliated with QAnon conspiracy somehow. Per the Daily Dot, they shared an online birthplace in 4chan and a proclivity for cryptic messaging, so some have drawn a line between them. One might think that 3301 would go out of their way to dispel that one too, but they haven't made any statements one way or the other. And actually, their last statement that we have featuring their digital fingerprint was a very brief message posted in 2017, encouraging people to beware false paths, and a reminder to check for their organization's PGP signature before taking any alleged statements as gospel. But since then, there's been nothing. At least nothing that anyone has found yet. And our question, strangers, it remains. Why bother correcting the record and insisting that you don't do anything illegal if nobody actually knows who you are or what you do? What reputation did Cicada possibly have to uphold, since all they seemed to do was pop up once a year for 3 years with a scavenger hunt? If they truly had nothing to do with any illegal activity, why bother pointing it out at all? It's worth noting that there are some theories that, of course, Cicada couldn't be involved in anything happening under the government's nose because it was the government. We know. It's very easy and, frankly, a little rhetorically lazy to blame the CIA for stuff like this. But it's not necessarily outside the realm of possibility either. Per the Evening Standard, quote, "Recruitment into the security services via online puzzles sounds like something from the sillier sort of television drama, but it is a real possibility. Project Architeuthis, the U.S. Navy's open recruitment tool, was created apparently in imitation of Cicada 3301 and released through Facebook to attract the next generation of cryptographers. The NSA and British efforts are similar. But whether they were the government or private citizens, after all that trouble, why disappear? That, strangers, is the most rhetorical question of them all. Maybe the media was right, and the whole thing had just gotten too big. Maybe the emphatic, "we are not criminals" talk was covering for crimes, and someone just got caught. Maybe the government funding ran out, or maybe Cicada 3301, whoever they are, is still flitting around on the internet, keeping tabs on who might have earned a spot in the Cryptography Hall of Fame. All we know is we definitely like this cicada more than the real 6-legged version. Those little guys, they're kind of weird. We hope you'll join us next time for another premium exclusive episode of One Strange Thing. Oh, and if you wouldn't mind, please take a moment to rate and review our podcast on your favorite app. It helps us find more listeners.